If this story has piqued your interest, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Let's continue. The mansion stood imposing in the heart of the Upper East Side, an affluent neighborhood in New York City, where each resident seemed to silently compete for the title of most luxurious. Behind the high walls and the electronic gate, Robert Anderson's house was a spectacle of imported marble, crystal, and fine woods. Every room breathed opulence, every detail whispered money. But there was something that luxury couldn't conceal, a wound no expensive decoration could heal. The pain of absence. It had only been 4 months since Olivia had passed. 4 months since leukemia won the battle she had fought so courageously during her pregnancy. She held on until the last moment, refusing aggressive treatments that could harm the baby, fighting to bring Michael into the world before surrendering to the inevitable. She succeeded. She held her son in her arms for 3 blessed weeks, covered his little face with kisses and whispers of eternal love. And then, on a cold October morning, she closed her eyes for the last time. Robert still didn't know how to go on. He woke up every morning expecting to hear her voice, turning over in bed searching for the warmth of the body that was no longer there. The family business, a medical equipment import company his grandfather had founded decades ago, continued to run on autopilot. He went to the office, signed papers, attended meetings, but it was as if he were watching his own life from the outside, like a bored spectator of a dull film. There was only one thing that still connected him to reality. Michael. The baby was a perfect copy of Olivia, same almond-shaped brown eyes, the same little upturned nose, the same curious expression she had when she discovered something new. Every time Robert looked at his son, he saw his wife. And that was both a comfort and a torture. But caring for a baby alone, immersed in his own grief, was a task that surpassed his strength. That's when his mother-in-law, Mrs. Eleanor, suggested hiring a nanny. Not just any nanny, of course, an elite professional, trained, referenced by an expensive agency that catered only to New York's high society families. The kind of person who knew how to do things the right way, who had experience with important families, who wouldn't make any mistakes. Sonia Fisher was the chosen one. She arrived with an impeccable resume, glowing references, and a posture that inspired confidence. 52 years old, short hair dyed a dark blonde, always manicured nails, discreet but high-quality clothes. She spoke with the confidence of someone who had cared for dozens of babies, who had worked in mansions larger than this one, who knew exactly what families like the Andersons expected. Robert hired her immediately. He needed someone like that, someone to take care of everything while he tried to pick up the pieces of his own soul. Sonia took command of the second floor where Michael's room was and established a strict routine: a bottle every 3 hours, a bath at 9 in the morning, a nap at 2 in the afternoon, and visits from the father restricted to specific times so as not to disrupt the baby's schedule. At first, Robert found it strange. He wanted to hold his son whenever he felt like it, to go into the room in the middle of the night just to check if everything was okay, to spend hours simply watching Michael sleep. But Sonia was firm. Routine was fundamental. Babies needed structure. She knew what she was doing. And Robert, too exhausted to argue, gave in. That's when Marina Scott entered the story. The 24-year-old arrived on a rainy November afternoon, recommended by an acquaintance of Mrs. Eleanor, who felt sorry for the young woman. Marina desperately needed a job, and the mansion needed someone to help with general chores, as Sonia did nothing but care for the baby. The idea was for Marina to assist with cleaning, organizing, and eventually provide some support to the main nanny when necessary. Marina was too thin, with deep, dark circles that revealed sleepless nights, and a sadness she tried to hide behind a gentle smile. She had long brown hair that she tied in a simple bun, green eyes that seemed to carry the weight of the world, and calloused hands from a life of hard work. She came from the outskirts of the Bronx, from a humble family that had raised her with great effort, and she was trying to rebuild her life after a personal tragedy she preferred not to discuss. Robert hired her for 2 reasons. First, because Mrs. Eleanor insisted, saying the girl deserved a chance. Second, because when Marina picked up some papers he had accidentally dropped in the entrance hall, he saw something in her eyes that he recognized. Pain. Loss. The kind of wound that doesn't heal, just stays there, throbbing quietly, reminding you that you once had something precious and lost it. Marina settled into a small maid's room at the back of the house, a simple but clean space with a single bed, a small wardrobe, and a window overlooking the garden. It was infinitely better than where she had lived before, a cramped tenement where she shared a room with 3 other women. Here, for the first time in a long time, she had privacy, silence, a place of her own. The first few days were quiet. Marina woke up early, prepared coffee, organized the house, did the laundry, ironed and cooked simple meals when Robert didn't order takeout. Sonia barely spoke to her, treating her with that cold, distant politeness that people of a certain social standing use with those they consider inferior. Marina didn't care. She was used to it. She did her work in silence, kept her head down, and was grateful to have a roof over her head and 3 meals a day. But there was something that deeply disturbed her. The baby's crying. Michael cried a lot. He cried in the morning, cried in the afternoon, cried at night. A sharp, desperate cry that pierced the mansion's walls and echoed through the hallways like a cry for help. Sonia always said it was normal, that babies cried, that it was part of it, that she knew how to handle it. She would close the bedroom door and continue her activities normally, checking her phone, watching soap operas on the small TV she had upstairs, doing her nails. Marina, however, couldn't ignore it. Every time she heard that cry, something inside her twisted. It was as if a dormant part of her soul suddenly awoke, screaming, demanding attention. She tried to distract herself, focusing on her tasks, but the sound haunted her, entering her ears, descending to her chest, squeezing her heart. Because Marina knew exactly what that cry meant. She had lost her own son just 8 weeks ago. A premature birth that didn't go well, complications the doctors couldn't properly explain, and suddenly, her baby was gone, and she woke up in an empty hospital room with painfully empty arms and breasts full of milk, with no one to offer it to. She tried to dry up the supply, but her body stubbornly continued, as if it didn't accept the loss, as if it was still waiting for someone to come and nurse. So every time Michael cried, Marina felt as if it were her own son calling for her. The situation worsened on a Thursday. Robert had travelled for an urgent meeting in Stamford, something related to a large contract he couldn't postpone. He would leave early in the morning and return only in the late afternoon. Sonia assured him that everything was under control, that she would take perfect care of Michael, that he didn't need to worry. But at 10 in the morning, Sonia received a call. Marina was downstairs folding towels in the laundry room when she heard the nanny coming down the stairs hurriedly, already talking on the phone with someone. From her tone of voice, she seemed excited, thrilled even. "I swear, honey, it's for real this time. He said he's going to pick me up. I'm finally getting out of this prison and we're going to meet up. I just need a few hours." Marina frowned. Prison. Sonia was paid very well, had a comfortable room, worked in a luxurious mansion. What was so prison-like about that? I know, but the man is away, the other simpleton here knows nothing, the baby is sleeping. I'm leaving now. I'll be back before he gets here. No one will even notice." Marina's heart raced. Sonia was leaving? She was going to leave the baby alone? Instinctively, Marina moved closer to the laundry room door, trying to hear better without being noticed. "No, I'm not taking the work phone. If he calls and I answer on the street, he'll get suspicious. I'll just leave it upstairs. If anything, I'll say I was in the shower. Relax, honey. It'll all be fine." And then Sonia hung up, ran up the stairs, and 15 minutes later walked out the front door with a large bag, wearing sunglasses and a coat that hid her nanny uniform. Marina was paralyzed. This couldn't be happening. It couldn't be true. But it was. Sonia had just abandoned a 4-month-old baby alone in a huge house. At first, Marina tried to convince herself it wasn't her problem. Sonia was the official nanny, the responsible one, the trained professional. If she thought she could leave, she must have had her reasons. Maybe she had left everything prepared. Maybe she would be back soon. It wasn't Marina's business to interfere. But then Michael started to cry. It started softly, that whimpering cry of a baby who wakes up looking for someone. Marina stopped what she was doing and waited, thinking Sonia had returned and would attend to him. But no one went up. The crying intensified. It became more intense, more desperate. Marina dropped the towels and went to the foot of the stairs, looking up. The crying was coming from the second floor, getting louder, sharper, more anguished. It was a different kind of cry. It wasn't a whimper. It was pure desperation. "Sonia?" Marina called, going up a few steps. "Sonia? Michael is crying." Nothing. Absolute silence, except for the baby's cry that was now bordering on a scream. Marina went up a few more steps. "Sonia, are you there?" The second-floor hallway was empty. The door to Michael's room was ajar, and the cry was coming from there, increasingly desperate. Marina went to the door and peeked inside. The baby was in the crib, his face red and wet from crying so much, his little arms flailing, his mouth open in a soul-shattering scream. Next to the crib, a bottle was on its side. The milk spilled on the sheet. Marina got closer and immediately smelled the sour scent. The milk had spoiled. How long had that bottle been there? She picked up the baby almost by instinct. Michael was too hot, feverish, his small body trembling. His lips were chapped from dehydration. The diaper, heavy and soiled, hadn't been changed in hours. This baby was suffering, he was sick, he was being neglected. "My God," Marina whispered, feeling tears burn her eyes. "My God, what have they done to you?" She changed the diaper with trembling hands, cleaned the baby carefully and threw away the spoiled bottle. She tried to prepare a new one, but Michael rejected it. He pushed the nipple away with his tongue, turned his face, and continued to cry. He was thirsty, hungry, but he didn't want that. Marina tried again, and again, and again. But the baby refused, growing weaker, his cry becoming hoarse from the effort. That's when she felt it. Her breasts were aching, heavy, full, the milk leaking through her clothes, soaking the simple blouse she was wearing. Her body had reacted to the baby's cry, activating the milk ejection reflex ready to breastfeed. And Michael, in her arms, began to make sucking motions. He turned his little head, searching, opened his little mouth, trying to find what he needed. It wasn't a conscious choice, it was pure instinct, it was survival. Marina looked at the door, looked at the baby, looked at her. Own breasts that ached with accumulated milk. She thought of Sonia, who had disappeared without a word. She thought of the father who was far away. She thought of the son she had lost and had never been able to properly nurse. And then, without much thought, without calculating the consequences, moved by a maternal instinct that was stronger than any reason, Marina sat down in the armchair in the room, unbuttoned her blouse, and offered her breast to the hungry baby. Michael latched on immediately. With a surprising strength for someone so frail, he took the breast, sucked, and began to nurse desperately. The crying stopped instantly. His little body relaxed. His small hands clutched Marina's blouse as if holding on to life itself. And Marina, for the first time since losing her son, felt a deep peace wash over her chest. Tears streamed silently down her face, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were of relief, of purpose, of connection. She stayed there for almost an hour. Michael nursed until he was satisfied, then fell asleep in her arms with an expression of tranquility he probably hadn't had in days. Marina just held him, rocked him gently, and hummed a soft lullaby her mother used to sing to her as a child. She didn't hear the front door open, didn't hear the heavy footsteps coming up the stairs. She noticed nothing until a male voice, shocked and trembling, echoed through the room. "What are you doing?" Marina looked up and saw Robert Anderson standing in the doorway, as pale as if he had seen a ghost. He was looking at her, at the baby in her arms, at her exposed breast, with an expression that mixed shock, confusion, and something she couldn't identify. I can explain," Marina began, trying to cover herself quickly, but Michael whimpered in his sleep and she was afraid of waking him. Robert entered the room slowly, as if in a trance. Are you breastfeeding my son?" He was crying. For hours. Sonia disappeared and he had a fever. He was dehydrated. The bottle was spoiled and he wouldn't take another one, and The words came out in a jumbled, desperate rush. I didn't know what to do. He was going to die. He was dying. I had to... "Sonia disappeared?" Robert cut in, his voice hardening. What do you mean disappeared? She left. She got a call this morning and left. She left him all alone. Robert was silent for a long moment, processing the information. Then he approached and looked at his son. Michael was sleeping soundly, his breathing calm and regular, an expression of absolute peace on the little face that had previously been red and contorted with tears. It was the first time in weeks that Robert had seen his son like this. So peaceful, so happy. "How long has he been like this?" Robert asked quietly. "Since he started nursing." He stopped crying immediately. Robert ran a hand over his face, exhausted. He sat on the edge of the bed, his shoulders slumped under the weight of it all. "I didn't know. I had no idea he was suffering so much. Sonia wouldn't let anyone in. She said you disrupted the routine." And I believed her. Like an idiot, I believed her. Robert looked at Marina with an intensity that made her look away. "You lost a child?" Marina swallowed hard. No one knew. She hadn't told anyone. But somehow, he had sensed it. "I did," she whispered. 8 weeks ago. And you're still producing milk. The body doesn't understand. It keeps waiting." Robert fell silent again, looking at his sleeping son in the arms of this stranger who had just saved Michael's life. There was something profoundly wrong with this situation, something he knew he should question, investigate, understand. But at the same time, there was something profoundly right. His son was okay. For the first time in a long time, his son was truly okay. "Thank you," he said finally, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for saving him." Marina just nodded, unable to speak. And then, in that quiet room, as the baby slept peacefully and the afternoon sun cast a golden glow on everything outside, something changed. A connection was formed. An invisible bond was established between 3 wounded people who, unknowingly, were about to have their lives completely transformed. But what none of them imagined was that this moment of peace would be just the beginning. Because outside, beyond the mansion's walls, in the neighboring houses, and on the phones that wouldn't stop ringing, a storm was brewing. A storm made of gossip, lies, and judgments that would soon engulf them all. And Marina, who thought she had finally found a safe place, would discover that sometimes the greatest cruelty comes not from strangers on the street, but from the people who call themselves civilized, who live in beautiful houses and frequent expensive clubs, but who carry venom in their words and ice in their hearts. Sonia returned 3 hours later, just as Robert was in the room talking quietly with Marina, while Michael continued to sleep peacefully. The nanny entered through the side kitchen door, quickly put her bag away, fixed her hair and went up the stairs as naturally as if she had never left. She found her employer sitting next to that insignificant helper, both of them looking at the baby, as if he were the most precious thing in the world. Sonia's professional smile faltered for a fraction of a second before she composed herself. "Mr. Anderson, I didn't expect you back so soon," she said in an overly cheerful voice. "Did the meeting go well?" Robert turned slowly, and the look he gave her was pure ice. "Where were you, Sonia?" "Was I?" She blinked, confused. "I've been here the whole time, taking care of Michael, of course." "Don't lie to me." Robert's voice was low, controlled, but there was steel in it. "Marina told me you left. You left my son alone, crying, sick, with a spoiled bottle next to his crib." The blood drained from Sonia's face. She looked at Marina with such intense hatred that the young woman shrank in her chair. This girl is lying. She invaded my space, went through my things. She's trying to get me in trouble." "The bottle is right there." Robert pointed to the trash can. "Pick it up and smell it. It's sour. Do you know how long it takes for... Do you know how long? Milk to get like that?" Sonia opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water. It must have been a mistake. I didn't notice. These things happen. They happen when you're not here to do your job." Robert stood up, and his height, combined with his contained anger, made him seem even more imposing. "Where did you go?" "I just had to take care of something quickly. It was an emergency." "What kind of emergency is more important than the life of a child under your care?" Sonia had no answer. She stood there, pale, trembling, her eyes darting between Robert and Marina, as if looking for an escape that didn't exist. "You're fired," Robert said finally. "I want you out of my house in 1 hour. I'll pay what's due, but I don't want you near my son ever again." "Mr. Anderson, please. I need this job. I have bills to pay. You should have thought of that before you abandoned a sick baby alone." He crossed his arms. "1 hour, Sonia. Don't make me call security." The nanny stumbled out of the room, muttering excuses no one wanted to hear. Marina remained seated, still holding the soundly sleeping Michael, not knowing exactly what to say or do. Robert sat down again, running his hands over his tired face. "I'm sorry you had to witness that. And I'm sorry I put my son in the hands of someone so irresponsible." "It wasn't your fault," Marina said quietly. "You trusted her references. Anyone would have done the same. But not just anyone would have done what you did." He looked at her with deep gratitude. "You saved my son. I don't know how to thank you." Marina felt her cheeks burn. "I just did what had to be done. You breastfed my son. That goes far beyond doing what had to be done." An uncomfortable silence settled between them. Marina knew that gesture had crossed boundaries, that there was something profoundly intimate and complicated in what had happened. But looking at the baby so peaceful in her arms, she couldn't regret it. "I want you to take over as the official nanny," Robert said suddenly. "I'll triple your current salary. You'll have the room on the second floor, regular days off, a transportation allowance, health insurance, everything by the book, with a proper contract." Marina's eyes widened. "Mr. Anderson, I don't have any training. I don't have experience as a professional nanny. I don't have references. You have something much more valuable than all of that. You have love. You have true maternal instinct. And my son clearly trusts you." Robert pointed to Michael. "Look at him. He's more peaceful than I've seen him in weeks. That's no coincidence." "But, please, Marina, accept. I need someone I can trust. I need someone who truly cares. And I know you care." Marina looked at the baby, at that serene little face that so reminded her of the son she had lost. She felt her heart ache and expand at the same time, a mixture of pain and hope she couldn't name. "All right," she whispered. "I accept." And so, on that Thursday afternoon, Marina Scott went from being the invisible maid from downstairs to the official nanny of Michael Anderson. She moved into the spacious second-floor room where Sonia used to sleep, organized her few clothes in the large closet, and for the first time in a long time felt that maybe, just maybe, life was giving her a second chance. But what neither of them imagined was that this decision, as right as it seemed, as natural as it was, would trigger a series of events that would nearly destroy them all. Because Sonia Fisher was not the type to accept being fired in silence. She left the Anderson mansion with her head held high and her heart boiling with rage. She had worked hard to build that reputation, that flawless resume, those glowing references. And now, because of some little helper who decided to play the hero, it was all ruined. She wasn't going to let it go. That same night, while packing her things, in the apartment she shared with her sister in Queens, Sonia picked up her phone and started calling everyone she knew on the Upper East Side. And she knew a lot of people. Years of working in the homes of wealthy families had given her a vast network of contacts. She first called Nusa, the nanny next door, then Conceição, the housekeeper of the mansion across the street, then Marlene, a cook for a family 3 blocks down. And to each of them, she told the same story, carefully crafted to generate the maximum possible scandal. "You won't believe what happened to me today, dear. I was fired. You know why? Because that new helper, that Marina, was obsessed with the baby. You should have seen her, prowling around the room, coming in without permission, picking up the boy without my authorization. When I confronted her, she accused me of abandoning the child, a complete lie. But you won't even imagine the worst part. When the father got home, he found her breastfeeding the baby. That's right, nursing him. Can you imagine the absurdity? Some random stranger putting a baby to her breast like that without permission, without anything. She clearly wanted to take the place of the mother who died. The work of a crazy person. and the man, poor thing, so fragile from the loss of his wife, fell for her act completely. He fired me on the spot and hired her. I ask you, what kind of woman does that? What kind of person takes advantage of a situation like that? It's so wrong, so very wrong. The story spread like wildfire. Within 24 hours, the entire Upper East Side knew that in the Anderson mansion there was a suspicious nanny who had breastfed the motherless baby without permission. The versions varied. Some said Marina had seduced Robert, others that she had planned everything from the beginning. Still others whispered that maybe she had given the baby something to make him dependent on her. Robert's phone started ringing off the hook. First it was Eleanor, his mother-in-law, scandalized. "Robert, tell me it's not true. Tell me you didn't hire that girl as the official nanny. People are saying terrible things." Then it was Andrew, his best friend from college, worried. "Man, are you sure about what you're doing? I know you're going through a tough time, but letting a stranger breastfeed your son, isn't that a bit weird?" Then it was his cousin Renata, always the self-appointed advisor. "Rob, you're vulnerable. Anyone can see that. And there are women who take advantage of vulnerable men to get what they want. You have to be careful." And then the worst call of all. From his father, John Anderson, the family patriarch, a respected businessman with morals as rigid as steel. "Robert, come to my office tomorrow morning. We need to talk about this situation you've created." Robert knew that when his father used that tone, there was no room for argument. He went to the company's main office the next morning, leaving Michael in the care of Marina, who for the first time since officially taking over, seemed nervous. "Is everything all right?" Marina asked as she prepared the bottle. "It is," Robert lied. "I'll be back soon." But it wasn't. Nothing was all right. In the office, his father was waiting for him behind a huge mahogany desk, his reading glasses hanging around his neck, his suit as impeccable as ever. Beside him were his Uncle Maurice, John's older brother, and his Aunt Gloria, the most conservative member of the family. "Sit," John ordered, pointing to the chair in front of him. Robert sat, already prepared for the lecture. "Son, tell me something. Have you lost your mind?" "Dad, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you hired a complete stranger to care for my grandson without a background check. That this woman is living in your house, caring for the child, and you barely know who she is?" "I know who she is. She saved Michael's life." "According to her," Aunt Gloria interjected with a sour voice. "You only have her word for it, Robert. What if she made it all up to get the job? The bottle was spoiled. I saw it. I smelled it. So what? That doesn't change the fact that she crossed an absurd line." Uncle Maurice leaned forward. "Robert, you're a grown man, but you're clearly not thinking straight. This woman breastfed your son without permission. Do you understand how inappropriate that is? Michael was starving. She did what she had to do." "She did what she wanted to do," John countered coldly. "And now she's living in your house with full access to your son, your assets, your life. And you don't even know her past. Do you know if she has a criminal record, psychiatric problems? Is she involved with drugs?" "She's none of those things." "How do you know?" Gloria crossed her arms. "Robert, dear, you're vulnerable. You just lost Olivia. You're alone, caring for a baby, drowning in grief. It's natural to cling to the first person who shows some affection for Michael, but that doesn't mean she's suitable." Robert felt anger rising, burning his throat. "You don't know Marina. You know nothing about her." "Exactly," John slammed his hand on the desk. "We don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows, and that's a problem." "So what do you want me to do? Fire her too? Leave my son in the care of another agency nanny who could be just as negligent as Sonia?" "We want you to use your head." Maurice sighed. "Hire a serious agency to investigate this girl's past. If she's clean, great, keep her. But if there's anything wrong, anything at all, you need to get her away from Michael immediately." Robert fell silent, processing. Part of him knew they had a point. He really didn't know Marina deeply. He really didn't know much about her past. But another part, the part that had seen his son peaceful for the first time in weeks, resisted. "All right," he said finally. "I'll hire someone to investigate. But in the meantime, she stays. John nodded, satisfied to have achieved at least that much. One more thing, son. This situation is generating a lot of gossip, a lot of speculation. It could affect the company. It could affect our reputation. So you need to control it. You need to make it clear to the right people that there is nothing inappropriate happening in your house. There is nothing inappropriate. Then make people believe that. Robert left the office with an even heavier weight on his shoulders. He knew his family had their reasons, that they were trying to protect him, to protect Michael, to protect the Anderson name. But he couldn't help feeling that he was betraying Marina in some way. She had saved his son, and now he was investigating her life as if she were a criminal. In the following weeks, the pressure only mounted. The private investigation began, digging into every aspect of Marina's life. They found out about the son she lost, the premature birth, the difficult months she spent trying to recover. They found out she came from a poor family in the Bronx, that her father had left when she was a child, that her mother cleaned houses to support her children. They found out Marina had been working since she was 14, that she had studied at night, that she never finished high school because she needed to work more hours when her mother got sick. But they found nothing incriminating. No criminal record, no drugs, no suspicious behavior. Marina was exactly who she appeared to be, a poor, hard-working young woman who had suffered a great deal and was trying to rebuild her life. But to the elitist neighborhood of the Upper East Side, that didn't matter. To them, Marina was an intruder, a stranger who had infiltrated a vulnerable family. The fact that she had breastfed Michael without permission was seen as something almost obscene, a violation of boundaries that no decent person would commit. The mothers in the neighborhood started whispering when Robert passed with the stroller. The looks in the supermarket changed from cordial to judgmental. The invitations to lunches and dinners he used to receive dried up. Even close friends began to pull away, uncomfortable with the whole situation. And Robert, exhausted, confused, and pressured from all sides, began to waver. Maybe they were all right. Maybe he was being naive. Maybe Marina really had crossed lines she shouldn't have. Maybe it would be better for everyone if he found another solution. Marina noticed the change. She noticed how Robert became more distant, more formal, colder. She noticed the strange looks when she took Michael to the park. She noticed the whispers that stopped when she entered a room in the house. She tried to continue doing her job with the same dedication, but the tension was consuming her. At night, alone in her room, she cried silently, hugging her pillow, feeling the weight of all those invisible accusations. Until one December afternoon, 3 weeks after that fateful day, everything fell apart. Robert called her into the living room. He was pale, tense, avoiding looking directly at her. "Marina, we need to talk." Her heart sank. She knew what was coming. I deeply appreciate everything you've done for Michael. I truly do, but I don't think this is working out. People are talking, creating stories, and it's affecting my family, my company, everything. It's not fair to you either. You deserve to work in a place where you're respected. "You're firing me," Marina said, her voice devoid of emotion. "I'm letting you go so you can find something better. I'll give you 3 months' salary in advance. I'll write a letter of recommendation. You're firing me because people are talking." Marina felt tears burn her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "Because their opinion matters more than your son's life." "It's not like that. It's exactly like that." She stood up, her dignity keeping her spine straight despite the pain. "I saved Michael twice, and you know it, but you'd rather believe gossip from people who have never set foot in this house." "Marina, please." "You can keep your money. I don't need charity." She turned to leave, but stopped at the door. "I just hope you don't regret this. I hope you find someone who loves your son as much as I do, because that's what Michael needs, not trained nannies, true love." And she left, went up the stairs for the last time, gathered her few belongings, gave one last kiss to Michael's sleeping face, and left the Anderson mansion without looking back. She had nowhere to go. The money she had saved over the past few weeks was barely enough for a few days' rent. She tried to go back to the tenement where she used to live, but the room had been rented to someone else. She tried her mother's house in the Bronx, but found out she had been evicted, and no one knew where she had gone. Within 48 hours, Marina was on the street. She slept the first night on a park bench, hugging the backpack that contained her entire life, shivering from the cold under the fine drizzle that fell over New York City. She woke up with an aching body, a scratchy throat, and eyes swollen from crying. She tried to get help at shelters, but they were full. She tried to find temporary work, but no one would hire someone without a fixed address, without a shower, without presentable clothes. With each passing day, she descended another step on the social ladder, until finally there were no more steps. She was in the gutter, literally. She spent her days wandering, looking for food in trash cans, begging for change at traffic lights, sleeping under awnings when the rain got heavy. Her body began to fail. The cough that had started that first night got worse, deeper, more painful. The fever came and went. The weakness grew. But what hurt the most wasn't her body. It was her heart. It was knowing she had left behind a child who needed her. It was imagining Michael crying, looking for her, not understanding why the person who loved him had suddenly disappeared. Was he okay? Had he found another nanny? Was he eating properly? Did he miss her as much as she missed him? The questions had no answers, and Marina, growing weaker, sicker, began to wonder if they ever would. In the mansion on the Upper East Side, however, the situation was far from resolved. Michael had changed completely. From the calm, happy baby he had been during the weeks with Marina, he had reverted to being the distressed, crying child he was before. Only now it was worse, much worse. He cried non-stop. He refused the bottle. He wouldn't be held by anyone. He didn't sleep. He was losing weight at an alarming rate. Robert hired 2 new nannies in quick succession, both highly recommended, both experienced. Neither could calm him. The pediatrician was called several times. He examined the baby, ran tests, ruled out physical illnesses, and then he gave the diagnosis Robert had feared hearing. Mr. Anderson, Michael is suffering from emotional trauma. Babies form deep emotional bonds, and when those bonds are abruptly broken, they suffer. It's as if a part of them has been torn away. He needs the person he bonded with. Without her, he will continue to fail to thrive. But he's so young. How could he have formed such a strong bond in such a short time? Babies are much more sensitive than we imagine, and from what you've told me, this Marina didn't just care for him, she breastfed him. That creates a deep chemical, biological connection. To Michael, she was his mother. Robert felt the world spin. What do I do? Find her, if it's still possible. But finding Marina proved more difficult than Robert had imagined. She hadn't left an address. The phone she had was turned off. No one knew where she was. It was as if she had vanished from the face of the earth. And while Robert scoured New York City for the only person who could save his son, Michael was rushed to the hospital with severe dehydration, failure to thrive, and a real risk to his life. In the pediatric ICU, connected to IV drips and monitors, the 5-month-old baby no longer cried. He just stared at the ceiling with empty eyes, as if he had given up on living, and Robert, standing beside the hospital crib, finally understood the extent of the mistake he had made. It didn't matter what people said. It didn't matter what his family, friends, or society thought. He had thrown away the only person who truly loved his son, and now it might be too late to fix it. Robert hadn't slept in 3 days. His eyes were red and swollen, an unshaven stubble covered his normally well-groomed face, and his wrinkled clothes betrayed someone who had completely lost control of his life. He spent his days alternating between the hospital, where Michael was fading away connected to machines, and the streets of New York, desperately searching for Marina. He had started in the obvious places. He went to the Bronx, knocked on doors, in the neighborhood where her mother supposedly lived, but no one knew anything. The neighbors barely remembered the Scott family. He checked shelters, visited health clinics, offered a reward on social media, put up posters in strategic spots around the city. Nothing. Marina had simply disappeared. Mr. Anderson, Dr. Fernanda, the physician in charge of Michael, called to him in the ICU hallway one gray December afternoon. She was a competent and direct woman in her 40s. "We need to talk." Robert approached, his heart already tight before he even heard what she had to say. Michael isn't responding. We've tried everything. Tube feeding, appetite-stimulating medication, music therapy, light therapy. Nothing is working. He simply doesn't want to fight anymore. What are you saying? I'm saying that if we don't change something drastically, we're going to lose him. The doctor touched his arm gently. I know you're looking for that nanny, Marina. You need to find her soon. Very soon. Robert felt his legs weaken. He leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. I'm doing everything I can, but it's like she's vanished. Then look harder. Look in places you might not have looked, because your son needs her, and time is running out. That same night, Robert was walking through the streets of downtown Manhattan when he had an idea. He had checked official shelters, but what about the informal ones? The places where people without documents or resources went when they had no other options. He started asking homeless people. He showed a photo of Marina on his phone, offering money, food, anything in exchange for information. Most knew nothing. Some clearly lied, inventing stories just to get the $20 he was offering. But then in the freezing early morning hours near a notorious downtown area known for open drug use, he found an elderly man who introduced himself as Joe. This girl here? Joe pointed to the photo, his eyes clouded by cataracts. I think I've seen her. A few days ago. She was very sick, coughing a lot. She went to a health clinic over by a downtown park, asking for help. When was this? Let's see, maybe 4 or 5 days ago? I'm not sure. The days all blend together out here, you know. Robert felt a surge of hope. And after that? Did you see her again? No, but there's a group that stays. Over by the park, under the overpass. They know everyone. If she's around here, they'll know. Robert thanked him profusely, pressed a $50 bill into the old man's hand, and ran to the indicated spot. It was almost 3 in the morning. The cold bit at his skin, and he was exhausted. But he couldn't stop. He couldn't give up. He found the group under the overpass, about 15 people huddled on cardboard and old blankets, trying to shield themselves from the pre-dawn chill. Most were immediately suspicious of him. A well-dressed man, smelling of money, showing up in the middle of the night. He screamed police, or worse, a hustler looking to take advantage, but Robert didn't give up. He showed the photo, explained the situation, offered help, and finally, a middle-aged woman with a face weathered by time and the streets approached him. I know where she is. Marina. You know her? I do. She showed up a couple of weeks ago. She's really sick. Pneumonia, I think. Can barely get up. Where? Where is she? The woman hesitated. You're not going to do anything bad to her, are you? Because if you are, I'd rather not say. I need her to save my son. She used to take care of him. He's dying without her, please. Robert's voice broke. Please, take me to her. The woman studied his face for a long moment, searching for lies, finding only sincere desperation. All right. Come with me. They walked for nearly 20 minutes, through dark alleys and narrow lanes that Robert never knew existed in the city where he was born. Finally, they reached a more remote overpass, where a small group was huddled together. There, the woman pointed to a figure curled up in a corner, covered by a ragged old blanket. That's her. Robert approached slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. He knelt beside the figure and gently pulled back the blanket. Marina was unrecognizable. The face that was once just thin was now skeletal. Her skin had a sickly grayish tone. Her lips were chapped and pale. The brown hair she always kept clean and tied back was tangled and dirty, and her breathing, labored and noisy, revealed lungs compromised by pneumonia. Marina? Robert called softly, touching her shoulder. She opened her eyes with difficulty, took a few seconds to focus, and when she finally recognized him, she tried to pull away. Don't touch me. Her voice was hoarse, almost inaudible. Marina, it's me, Robert. I came to get you. Go away. She coughed, a deep, painful cough that shook her entire body. I don't want your charity. It's not charity, it's desperation. Robert felt tears roll freely down his face. "Michael is dying. He needs you. I need you. You threw me away. Like trash." Another coughing fit. "You believed them, not me. I know. And I regret it every day, every minute since you left. I made the worst mistake of my life. But don't let my son pay for my mistake, please." Marina closed her eyes, tears mixing with the dirt on her face. "I can't trust you ever again. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to save Michael. He's in the ICU, hooked up to machines, fading away because he lost you. The doctors said that without you we're going to lose him, and I can't lose anyone else, Marina. I can't lose my son." She opened her eyes again, and this time there was something different in them. Fear, worry, a maternal love that neither abandonment nor illness nor suffering had managed to extinguish. "He's dying." "He is. Separation trauma, the doctors call it. He formed a bond with you that can't be replaced. Without you, he's simply given up on living." Marina tried to stand, but her body wouldn't respond. She fell back, exhausted. I can't. Too weak. I'll carry you. I'll take you to the hospital. They'll treat you. And when you're better, you can see Michael. Please, let me do this. Let me at least try to fix what I destroyed." She looked at him for a long moment, and Robert saw the internal struggle. Pride fighting with love. Resentment fighting with the need to save that child. And finally, love won. Okay. But only for him. Not for you. Robert wasted no time. He lifted Marina into his arms, surprised at how light she was, how fragile the once strong body had become. He thanked the woman who had guided him, promised to return with help for the group, and ran to the car he had parked a few blocks away. The drive to the hospital was torture. Marina coughed incessantly, her body racked with violent spasms, the fever making her delirious. She muttered nonsensical things, called out for people Robert didn't know, and cried softly. And Robert drove as fast as he could without causing an accident, praying to arrive in time, praying it wasn't too late for either Marina or Michael. When they arrived at the emergency room, a team was already waiting. Robert had called from the car, explained the situation, and the doctors were ready. They took Marina immediately to intensive care. Severe bilateral pneumonia, acute malnutrition, critical dehydration. They needed to stabilize her before she could see Michael. Robert stayed in the waiting room, now torn between two patients he loved in different ways but with the same intensity. On one side, his son, fading in the pediatric ICU. On the other, the woman who had saved that son and whom he had betrayed in the worst possible way. Dr. Fernanda came to see him a few hours later. "You found her?" "I did. She's being treated now. Severe pneumonia." "How long will it take for her to recover?" "I don't know. The doctors said it depends on how her body responds to the antibiotics." The doctor sighed. "Michael doesn't have much time. Robert, 2, maybe 3 days at most. After that?" "I know. But I've done everything I can. Now it's up to her." 2 days passed in slow agony. Michael continued to decline, getting weaker, more distant. Robert alternated between the rooms, visiting his son in the pediatric ICU and Marina in the pulmonology wing. She was improving slowly, but she was improving. The antibiotics were working, the fever had broken, her breathing was easier, but she still wasn't strong enough to get up. On the 3rd day, Robert was beside Michael's crib, holding his son's small, cold hand, when Dr. Fernanda entered with a grave expression. "Robert, I have to be honest with you. Michael isn't going to make it through the night. His little body is giving up. There's nothing more we can do from a medical standpoint." "No, it can't be. Marina is getting better. There isn't enough time. I'm so sorry." Robert looked at his son, the tiny baby who was all that was left of Olivia, who was his entire hope for the future, and felt his world collapse. It couldn't be this way. It couldn't end like this. There had to be a way. That's when he had a desperate idea. He ran to Marina's room. She was awake, sitting up in bed with difficulty, still pale but definitely better than when she had arrived. "Marina, I need you now. I know you're not fully recovered, but Michael can't wait any longer. Either you go now or it will be too late." She looked at him, and for the first time since their reunion, she seemed truly focused. "He's that bad? He's going to pass away tonight if we don't do something." Marina didn't hesitate. She ripped off the electrodes monitoring her vital signs, pulled out the IV line with a sharp movement that drew blood, and got out of bed on trembling but determined legs. "Then let's go." The nurse tried to stop them, saying Marina hadn't been discharged, that she couldn't leave, that she needed to finish her treatment. But Robert was no longer concerned with rules. He grabbed a wheelchair, sat Marina in it, and personally wheeled her to the pediatric ICU. The doctors questioned, the nurses protested, but Dr. Fernanda, seeing the situation, made a decision. Let them. If there's a chance, however small, to save this child, we're going to take it. Go in. Robert pushed the wheelchair to Michael's crib. The baby was even weaker than he had been that morning, his lips bluish from lack of oxygen, his eyes closed, his breathing almost imperceptible. Marina looked at the child she had cared for so little time, but loved with such intensity, and felt her heart shatter. "Michael," she called softly, her voice still hoarse but filled with love. "Michael, sweetheart, it's me. It's Murray. I'm back." Nothing. No reaction. Marina tried to get up from the chair. Robert helped her, holding her steady as she stood. With difficulty. She leaned over the crib, took the baby's cold little hand and began to sing. It was the same lullaby she used to sing, the same gentle melody that calmed Michael when he cried. Her voice cracked several times, her throat still raw from coughing, but she continued. And then it happened. Slowly, very slowly, Michael opened his eyes. He looked at the ceiling first, then to the sides, then forward. And when his eyes met Marina's face, something changed. A light that had gone out flickered back to life in his little brown gaze. "Michael," Marina whispered, hot tears falling on the baby's cold face. "I'm here, my love, I'm here." The baby made a sound, small, weak, but definitely a sound of recognition. His tiny hand squeezed Marina's finger with surprising strength for someone so debilitated. And then, for the first time in nearly 3 weeks, Michael smiled. It was a faint smile, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Real, true, full of love and recognition. "My God," Dr. Fernanda whispered behind them, "I don't believe it." Marina, ignoring her own weakness, asked Robert to help her sit in the chair next to the crib. Then, with trembling hands, she opened her hospital gown and offered her breast to the baby. Michael nestled against her immediately. He latched on with hunger, but also with an emotional urgency, as if reconnecting with the only source of safety and love he knew. He began to nurse slowly at first, then with more vigor, his little body relaxing with every swallow. The nurses monitored everything closely, ready to intervene if anything went wrong. But it didn't. Nothing went wrong. On the contrary, Michael's vital signs, which had been critically low, began to improve. His oxygen saturation rose, his heartbeat strengthened, the color returned to his lips. It was like watching a miracle happen in real time. Marina breastfed Michael for almost 40 minutes. When he finally released her breast, satisfied and sleepy, she placed him against her shoulder to burp him. Michael burped once, gave a deep, contented sigh, and snuggled into her arms as if he never wanted to leave. "Hi, my love," Marina whispered, kissing the top of the baby's head. "I missed you so much. So much." Michael responded with a satisfied little sleep sound, his tiny fingers clutching her gown, his body finally relaxed. After weeks of tension, Robert was in shock. Leaning against the wall, he watched the scene with tears streaming freely down his face. He had just witnessed something he couldn't rationally explain. A bond so deep, so real, so powerful, that it had literally brought his son back from the brink of death. Dr. Fernanda approached him. "I've never seen anything like it in 20 years of pediatric medicine. It's as if his body just decided to start working again because she was here." "It's love," Robert said simply. "True love." The doctor nodded, visibly moved. "I'm going to send Marina back to finish her pneumonia treatment. but she can visit Michael several times a day, and when they are both stable enough, we'll transfer them to the same room. I think it's best to keep them together. Thank you for everything, for believing, for giving us this chance. Don't thank me, thank her. Robert approached Marina, who was still holding the sleeping Michael. He knelt beside the chair, looking at them both with a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and something else he couldn't yet name. Marina, I don't have the words to— You don't need words, she interrupted him, but her voice was gentle. I didn't do this for you, I did it for Michael, because I love him and I always will, no matter what happens. I know. And for that very reason, I need to ask you something. Come back. Come back to take care of him. Come back to the house. Not as an employee, but as the most important person in his life. Marina looked at him for a long time. You hurt me deeply, Robert. You threw me out when I needed support the most. You believed gossip instead of believing in me. You let the opinions of people who don't even know me destroy everything. How do you expect me to trust you again? I don't. But I will spend the rest of my life trying to earn back that trust. I'll do everything differently. I'll put you and Michael above everything and everyone. I won't let anyone influence my decisions anymore. I won't be weak again. Words are easy, Robert. Actions are what matter. Then let me prove it with actions. Give me that chance. Not for me, but for him. Robert pointed to Michael. He needs you. And I need you too. Not just as a nanny, as part of the family, as someone essential in our lives. Marina looked at the sleeping baby in her arms. She thought about everything she had been through, all the suffering, all the rejection. She thought about how much easier it would be to just say no and move on, to build a life far away from the man who had hurt her so deeply. But then Michael sighed softly in his sleep, tightening his little fingers on her gown, and Marina knew there was no choice. Not really. Because that baby was her son, as much as he was Robert's. The bond they had created was real. It was deep. It was unbreakable. I'll come back, she said finally. But on my terms. Anything. Whatever you want. First, you will draw up a legal document giving me authority over all decisions related to Michael. Health, education, routine, everything. I don't want to be disposable anymore. Done. Second, I will no longer be treated as an employee. I will be treated as Michael's mother. Because that's what I am. And if anyone at all questions that or tries to belittle me, you will defend me, publicly, without hesitation. I will defend you. Third, if at any point I feel this isn't working, that you are once again putting the opinions of others above Michael's well-being, I will leave, and this time I'm taking him with me. Robert swallowed hard. It was a serious threat, but it was also fair. I agree. Then we have a deal. Marina extended her free hand, the other still holding Michael. But know this, Robert. Trusting you again will take time. A lot of time. Don't expect it to be easy. Don't expect it to be quick. I don't. I just hope you'll give me the chance to prove that I've changed, that I've learned, that I will never make the same mistake again. She shook his hand, sealing the deal. And at that moment, in the pediatric ICU of a New York hospital, with a baby sleeping peacefully between them, Robert and Marina took the first hesitant step toward something neither of them could yet name. It wasn't love. Not yet. It was something more complicated, more fragile, more precious. It was the possibility of rebuilding trust, the possibility of forming an unconventional but real family, the possibility of transforming pain into healing, mistakes into lessons, loss into a new beginning. And as Michael slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, oblivious to all the storms yet to come, oblivious to all the battles they would still have to fight, Robert and Marina made a silent promise to protect this child, to love him, to give him everything he needed to grow up happy and secure. It didn't matter what others said. It didn't matter how many more storms they would have to face. They would endure, together. Because sometimes family isn't about blood. It's not about social conventions or the approval of others. It's about choices. It's about commitment. It's about a love that overcomes barriers and prejudices. And this, most definitely, was a family that had chosen to form through the purest love that exists, the love that saves lives and rebuilds shattered worlds. The recovery was slow but steady. Marina stayed in the hospital for another week, finishing her pneumonia treatment, regaining weight, her face regaining its color. Michael also needed time to stabilize completely, but with Marina visiting several times a day, nursing him, singing to him, simply being present, the baby returned to being the calm, happy child he had been before everything fell apart. The doctors called it a miracle. Robert called it love. Marina was simply grateful for a second chance. When they were finally discharged, it was almost Christmas. New York City was decorated with lights and ornaments, a festive atmosphere in the air, but for Robert and Marina, the real celebration was being able to bring Michael home, healthy, strong, and happy. Returning to the mansion was strange. Marina entered through the main door this time, not the service entrance. She walked up the stairs without asking permission, occupying the spaces with the natural ease of someone who belonged. Robert had kept his promise. He had prepared all the legal documentation giving her authority over decisions concerning Michael. He had also substantially increased her salary and only called her a nanny because they needed an official term for the contracts. But everyone knew she was much more than that. She was Michael's mother, in every way but on paper. The first few days were about adjustment. Robert was more present than ever, not just as the father who stopped by to say goodnight, but involved in every detail of the routine. He woke up when Michael woke up, helped with diaper changes, held the baby while Marina prepared his bath, and read stories before bed. He was learning to be a real father, not just the man who signed checks and made decisions from a distance. Marina observed these changes cautiously. She wanted to believe they were genuine, that Robert had truly learned his lesson, but the wound was still fresh. There were moments when he tried to get too close, to make jokes, to create an intimacy she wasn't ready for. And she would pull back, politely but firmly, making it clear that trust wasn't won back with smiles and good intentions, but with consistent actions over time. Robert respected these boundaries. He was learning that rebuilding what he had destroyed would take much longer than it had taken to destroy it. But the real trial by fire came one January afternoon, when Robert organized a lunch at the mansion to formally introduce Marina to the family. Everyone was there. John, his father, still skeptical. Maurice and Gloria, his uncle and aunt, with their ever-present air of judgment. Eleanor, his mother-in-law, trying to be diplomatic, but clearly uncomfortable. A few cousins, his closest friends. It was practically a tribunal. Marina came down the stairs with Michael in her arms, wearing a simple but beautiful dress Robert had insisted on buying for her. The baby was radiant, smiling, clearly comfortable in her arms. The silence that fell as she entered the dining room was almost palpable. "Good afternoon, everyone," Robert began, his voice firm. "Thank you for coming. I want to formally introduce Marina Scott, who is not only Michael's nanny but the person who saved his life twice, and who, from now on, is to be treated by everyone as a member of this family." Gloria nearly choked on her wine. "Robert, dear, this is very hasty, don't you think? We barely know the young woman. You know enough to have spread gossip that nearly killed her. You know enough to have pressured me into firing her, which almost cost my son his life. I think you know plenty." Robert's tone was sharp, and many of the guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. John, the patriarch, cleared his throat. "Son, no one is questioning the affection this young woman has for Michael, but you need to understand our position. We have responsibilities, a reputation to uphold, a name to protect. And which is more important, Dad, our reputation or your grandson's life? It's not a matter of choosing between, it's exactly a matter of choosing. And I've chosen Michael. I choose him every day, above the company, above public opinion, above everything." Robert looked around the room. "And if any of you can't accept that, if you can't treat Marina with the respect she deserves, then I suggest you leave my house now." The silence was deafening. No one moved. It was Eleanor who broke the Impasse. She stood up, walked over to Marina, and looked at her grandson in her arms. Michael smiled at his grandmother, the innocent, happy smile of a baby who knows no prejudice. "May I hold him?" Eleanor asked gently. Marina hesitated, but then handed the baby over. Eleanor took Michael carefully, and her grandson immediately snuggled against her, happy. The grandmother looked at Marina with tears in her eyes. "Thank you. Thank you for not giving up on him. Thank you for loving him when we failed." And then she hugged Marina, and the young woman, surprised, returned the embrace. It was a small but significant moment, a first step toward acceptance. Not everyone followed Eleanor's example. Some of the guests remained cold, distant, clearly disapproving. But Robert made it clear throughout the lunch that Marina was non-negotiable. She was there to stay, and anyone who didn't like it could either adapt or leave. The next day, Robert did something even braver. He wrote a long post on his social media, telling the whole story. He spared no details. He talked about Sonia's negligence, about how Marina saved Michael, about how he had made the mistake of believing gossip instead, of defending someone who deserved it, about how he almost lost his son due to prejudice and social pressure. The post went viral. It got millions of views, thousands of comments. Some were supportive, moved by the story of overcoming adversity. Others were critical, calling Robert naive, saying Marina was an opportunist. But he didn't delete it. He didn't back down. He left it there, exposed for the world to see, owning his mistakes and publicly defending Marina as he had promised. The repercussions were immediate. Some of the company's clients cancelled contracts, bothered by the controversy. Some friends distanced themselves, saying Robert had lost his mind. But others supported him. Others sent messages of solidarity. Others shared similar stories of how prejudice and judgment had nearly destroyed their own families. And Marina, reading that post while rocking Michael to sleep, finally allowed the first layer of ice around her heart to begin to melt. Robert was keeping his promise. He was defending her. He was fighting. He was proving himself with actions, not just words. The months went by. A routine was established. Robert, Marina, and Michael formed an unusual but functional trio. They had breakfast together, went for walks in the park on Sundays, and spent evenings watching children's shows while Michael played on the rug. It wasn't a traditional family. There was no romance between Robert and Marina, only a growing respect and a partnership focused on the child's well-being. But it was a family, real and true. It was on an April evening, when Michael had just turned 1, that Marina had a difficult conversation with Robert. They were in the living room, Michael asleep upstairs, and Marina seemed nervous, fidgeting with her hands, avoiding eye contact. "Robert, I need to talk to you about something important." He lowered the volume on the television, attentive. "Of course, go ahead." "I want to formally adopt Michael." Robert blinked, surprised. "Adoption? I know it sounds strange. I know you're his biological father, but I need that legal security. I need to know that if something happens to you, I won't lose the right to be with him, that no one can come and take him from me. He's my son, Robert, in every sense that matters, and I want that to be legally recognized." Robert was silent for a long moment, processing. It was a big request. It meant sharing legal custody, giving Marina the same decision-making power he had, making her officially Michael's mother. Some men would have been offended, would have felt forced, would have refused. But Robert was no longer the insecure man who had caved to peer pressure months ago. He had learned what truly mattered. "I think that's an excellent idea. I'll call the lawyer tomorrow and start the process." Marina's eyes widened in surprise. "Really? You don't mind?" "I do mind. I mind a great deal. But in favor, not against." Robert leaned forward. "Marina, you are Michael's mother. You always have been, from that very first time you held him when he was suffering. All that's missing is the piece of paper to acknowledge what we all already know. And the sooner we have that, the better." Marina felt the tears roll down her cheeks. She had prepared for a battle, to argue, to convince him. She hadn't expected it to be so easy, so natural. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for understanding." "No, thank you. for not giving up on him, for not giving up on us. The adoption process was long and bureaucratic. It involved psychological evaluations, home visits, interviews with social workers and court hearings. Marina was questioned about her motivation, her financial capacity without Robert, her plans for the future. Robert was questioned about why he was allowing it, if he was sure, if he understood the legal implications. But they remained firm. They answered everything with honesty. They showed the real bond that existed between Marina and Michael. They presented medical reports, professional testimonies, photos and videos that documented their relationship. And finally, on a rainy September morning, almost a year to the day after it all began, the adoption was approved. Marina Scott officially and legally became the mother of Michael Anderson. The ceremony at the courthouse was simple, but emotional. Robert was there, holding Michael, who was just starting to take his first steps. Eleanor was there, supporting the decision. A few true friends also attended, and when the judge pronounced the official words, declaring the adoption valid and recognizing Marina as Michael's legal mother, she couldn't hold back the tears. She had lost a son. She had suffered more than anyone should ever have to suffer. She had been thrown onto the street, humiliated, judged, and had almost lost her own life. But there she was, holding the paper that made her a mother again, not of the son she had lost, but of the son she had chosen, and who had chosen her back. "Congratulations, Mom," Robert said as they left the courthouse, passing Michael into her arms. "It's official now." Marina kissed the top of her son's head, her heart overflowing. "Officially," she repeated, smiling through her tears. Life went on. Michael grew up, started talking, calling Marina Mom and Robert Dad, with the naturalness of a child who had never known any other reality. The mansion on the Upper East Side was no longer a cold, silent place, but had become a real home, filled with children's laughter, toys scattered on the floor, and drawings taped to the refrigerator. Robert learned to ignore the malicious comments that still occasionally reached his ears. He learned that family isn't about what others think, but about what you build within your own four walls. He learned that courage isn't never feeling fear, but doing the right thing even when you are afraid. Marina learned to trust again, not completely, not blindly, but enough to build a life. She learned that she deserved to be treated with dignity, that her poor past didn't make her less valuable, that true love doesn't look at a bank account or a last name. And Michael, growing up in that environment of love and respect, learned something even more precious. He learned that family is a choice, that love is an action, that it's worth fighting for the people you love, even when the whole world is against you. There was no fairy tale ending with Robert and Marina falling in love and living happily ever after. Real life is more complicated than that. They built a solid partnership, a deep respect, a true friendship. There were moments when it seemed they might be heading towards something more, but there was no rush. The focus was on Michael, on building a safe and loving environment for him. And maybe, in the future, who knew? Maybe romantic love would still come, or maybe not. And either way, it was okay, because what they had was already precious enough. The family they formed was not conventional. It was strange by society's standards, but it was real. It was true. It was built on a solid foundation of sacrifice, forgiveness, growth, and genuine love. One summer afternoon, 2 years after it all began, Robert found Marina in the garden, watching Michael play in the kiddie pool. The boy was 3 now, chatty, clever, full of energy. He was laughing loudly, splashing water everywhere, completely happy. "He's gotten so big," Robert commented, sitting beside her. "He has. He's grown so much. Soon he'll be in school, making friends, having his own life. Are you sad about that?" "A little, but happy too. It means we did everything right, that he's healthy, safe, and ready to explore the world." Robert nodded, watching his son. "You know, Marina, there's something I've never told you." "What's that?" "You didn't just save Michael. You saved me too. I was lost, sinking, with no direction, and you, without even realizing it, taught me what really matters. You taught me how to be a better man, a better father, a better person, Marina looked at him, surprised by his vulnerability. "You did the same for me. You gave me a reason to keep going when I had none left. You gave me a family when I had lost everything. So we're even. We're even." They smiled at each other, and something shifted in that moment. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't explosive, but it was real. A door opened, showing possibilities that had once seemed impossible. But that was a story for another day. For now, they had enough. They had each other. They had Michael. They had a home. And that, they discovered, was all they really needed. Because in the end, family isn't about perfection. It's not about following social rules or meeting others' expectations. Family is about showing up. It's about staying. It's about choosing every single day to love and protect the people who matter, even when it's hard, even when it's complicated, even when the whole world tells you you're wrong. Robert, Marina, and Michael had built that, an imperfect, unconventional but true family. A family that had survived storms, overcome judgment, and emerged stronger on the other side. And as the sun set over New York City, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the three of them remained there in the garden. Michael playing without a care. Marina and Robert watching side by side, partners on a journey neither of them had imagined taking together, but which they now couldn't imagine taking apart. The mansion on the Upper East Side was no longer just a luxurious house. It was a home, and home is where the heart is. Home is where you are loved for who you are, not for what you have. Home is where you can make mistakes, learn, grow, and still be accepted. And for those three wounded hearts that found each other at the most unlikely of times, that mansion had become exactly that. A home, a refuge, a place of love. And that, in the end, was all they needed. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Marina, Robert, and Michael has deeply touched your hearts. If you were moved by this journey of love, resilience, and new beginnings, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments which moment resonated with you the most. Was it Marina's courage in breastfeeding Michael for the first time? Robert's desperate search through the streets of New York? The moment of their reunion at the hospital? We want to know what touched your soul. Every day we bring you intense stories like this one, revealing the truest and most profound side of the human experience. Stories that make us reflect on family, love, forgiveness, and the strength we find when all seems lost. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode, where a new, emotion-filled narrative will make you cheer, cry, and believe that there is always hope, even in the darkest of times. Until then, a warm embrace, and may true love always win in your life.